Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Frantic Thoughts podcast, a video game and entertainment podcast from me, Frantic, also known as Josh on the internet or in real life. This is my podcast where I talk about my life, things I'm interested in, and it feels a little weird because it's been such a long time since I sat down and recorded an episode. I think the last one I did was in September of 2020. And it's been hit and miss, been a little spotty over the last year or so, but I had to come back and talk about some of my favorite games from 2020. Better late than never. Like, it's the end of January pretty much. By the time this comes out, it might actually be February. So it's been some time since I sat down and talked to you guys, but I figured I'd bring an episode back, and I brought an awesome guest with me this time. I have Ryan at It's Rocket Sauce on Twitter to come talk about 2020 and some awesome games. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me. Well, when I heard you were going to be talking about games from 2020 and your top list, I had to join. I insisted on being on this episode because it's one thing, Josh, we used to do the CC Awards where we kind of would do this and recap what games we played, and this year just didn't happen. So it's one of those things where there's an opportunity, I felt like we missed out on doing it, and me and you are both a part of that show. So, I felt like I had to stay because I played a bunch of games from 2020. So there's things I felt like I had to say about these games.
Yeah, and I did kind of miss that episode this year. We used to have Caleb and Musty and you, and we just chill and talk about whatever games came out, gaming in general. I think 2020 was just one of those years where a lot of things was just weird. And a lot of things were different that you just really didn't expect to happen. Of course, we had the pandemic. We had just wildness going on all year long. So I think it just ended up being just one of those years that things changed and people understood because everything changed for everybody. So not having that end of the year show for the Cartridge Club, I don't know who expected it, but it feels kind of weird that we didn't actually do it. But I'm glad you're here talking to me about some awesome games.
Yeah, thanks for having me once again.
So what we're gonna do is we both brought lists. They're a little unorthodox, but I brought a top 10. You brought a top 5 from 2020, and then
that's right.
We both brought some games from the past that we'll talk to after that. But what I want to do is kick it off these lists with our honorable mentions for 2020, or just in general. What games did you play last year that you want to mention, but you didn't feel were like so big, so bold that you wanted to throw onto a list? And why don't you go ahead and shoot us here first with one of your honorable mentions?
So I'm going to have a little bit of a cop out here for my honorable mentions because these are games that came out in 2020, but I didn't get around to them until 2021. And in this case, they probably would have knocked out one or two games from my top list from 2020. But I didn't feel right with saying it was a 2020 game because I beat it in 2021. I mean, it is a 2020 game, but I didn't beat it in 2020. So that's why these are kind of like honorable mentions. I beat them recently, and I enjoyed them both. But I'll start off with Miles Morales, Spider-Man Miles Morales. It's a game I held off playing it until I had a PS5, and I didn't get a PS5 to late December. So it's one of those things where it was the first game I played for my PlayStation 5, and I had a great time playing it. So it just happened to be that I really didn't get around to it to after Christmas, when I could really slow down and actually enjoy my PS5. But yeah, I had a great time with it. So I just didn't feel right saying, it might be on my, if we do the CC Awards next year for best games that I didn't beat, not from 2021.
Yeah.
It might be on the list next year for that. But like I said, I just didn't feel morally right because I didn't beat it until 2021. So
honestly, that's a game we'll talk about later. And I didn't have that stipulation because the PS5 was so hard to come by. Like you said, me and you I think I was more on a mission to get it than you a lot of times, but I was like, I'm getting this thing and we both eventually did get it through various means because it was so hard to get a PS5. But since I got that so late in 2020, I'm counting a few games. I'm making exceptions, and I'm putting them on my 2020 Game of the Year list, even though I beat a couple of these games in 2021. To me, that doesn't really bother me as much, but I understand you not having them on your list for 2020. But for me, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I got this PS5 at the end of 2020. These are 2020 games to me, you know?
Well, in your case, didn't you pick up Miles originally for the PS4 as well?
Yeah, I did play some Miles PS4, maybe like 3 or 4 hours of it before I got a PS5. But I had this thing in the back of my head, knowing I was like, dude, I know I'm gonna get a PS5 eventually, and I don't want to beat Miles Morales and then be all bummed out that I didn't get that next gen experience.
Yeah.
So I went ahead and just like didn't complete it and waited until I got my PS5, and then I went through the rest of the game and still actually grinding on the game. Like currently, I played some today, just trying to get that platinum, you know. But yeah, that game's great.
I'll chalk this one up against the scalpers for ruining this being a 2020 top experience here. So
yeah, the scalpers, the bots, just all that stuff, just really. I hate that, man. I hate how that happened for everybody, because I know there were a lot of our friends in our community that were really looking for the system. Of course, me and you, we had Church the Game Grinder. You know, just a lot of people in the community were looking for one. SNES Drunk's girlfriend, Pearl, I remember I was looking at that. Like, she was trying to find one. Just a lot of people, like, were just trying to find a PS5, and it was just impossible to find because people were just, you know, using bots, buying a ton of them and just selling them off and making that bank, which, sure, do your thing, I guess, but you're just being an asshole, in my opinion. All right, so what's your next honorable mentions? You have a couple more? Do you want me to? Should I go ahead and jump in with mine?
Why don't you take a couple here?
Okay, I got a game called Hold Down, which I played this year a lot on my phone. It's a mobile game. It's this is why it's on my honorable mention. It's not a big game, but I mentioned it a little bit on my other podcast, Indie Quest, which I don't know if I've ever plugged on Frantic Thoughts. That's literally how long it's been since I've done this show, which I haven't plugged that podcast. So if you haven't checked out my other podcast, Indie Quest, or my other podcast, Box Office Bliss, I'll talk a little bit about them at the end of the show. But yes, I've been doing a lot of stuff. But anyway, Hold Down is this like mobile game. It's kind of like a Breakout clone mixed with Peggle. And it's just been my addiction, man. I have a lot of like little 10-minute short bursts of time to do like whatever on my phone at work. You know, I have like a really long shift. I need a break. I'll pull out my phone. I'll play some Hold Down. It's just a super easy and addictive game. I've been really into it this year. And it's super fun. It's just super simple. You're just breaking blocks with your little balls and upgrading your kit, getting more balls to break more bricks. Super easy and fun game. I just had a good time with it.
Is it a free game, or is there a charge on this one? And is there credits? Is this a beatable game?
Honestly, there is no credits. So what I did was
just a high score game, right?
There are okay, so basically what you're trying to do is it actually kind of has like a mini like goal per world. So each world is you're trying to dig down the core to the center of a planet. You work your way up to smaller to bigger planets till you get to the sun. And the sun's the hardest stage in the game. And I said, okay, once I get to the end of the sun and I actually get to the core of the sun and I beat that part, that's the end of the game for me. There's no actual credits. It pretty much just says, keep on playing, have fun, and then just levels up the difficulty again on you, and then you can re-go through all the planets again. So it's kind of one of those games that's never ending. It's like a never ending gobstopper. But I counted it as a beat once I got to the end of the sun, which took multiple hours, and it was a good time, but I still kept on playing the game because, like I said, it just keeps on going.
Gotcha.
So I'll shoot out another honorable mention, which is another mobile game, Monument Valley 2. I'm going to shout them both out real quick. They're really fun puzzle games. They have an MC Escher art style. very fascinating puzzle mechanics where you have to like go through these different like worlds that are just shaped super irregularly. You have to figure out how to match different like puzzle tiles together in this like kind of loop-de-loop style. It's really fun to figure out the puzzles in this game. Nice little break from, your world, and another mobile game. So I just want to give Monument Valley a shout out. Incredible art style, really great music. Such a little fun and somewhat short mobile game that I think is worth your time. You have any more honorable mentions to throw out there?
I have one more honorable mention.
Okay.
Once again, this falls into that same released in 2020, but I didn't play it till 2021. And it's the most recent game I beat on the PlayStation 5. It's Astro's Playroom. Now it's mostly seen as like a demo kind of for the PlayStation 5, but it's a free built-in game. It's really to show off kind of like, it mostly is the controller, right? I know you've played this one, Josh. It really is mostly to show off the haptic feedback and the triggers and the new rumbles and everything and the sound and I don't know. It's just a great time. I kind of I know I played I'll save this talk for future down the road here, but sorry, I'm consulting my notes here. Yeah, it's I kind of wish so the best way I could describe this is maybe playing it like Super Mario 64 with the fact that, and I know people said this about Astrobot VR, but it is that experience, right? Where it was kind of showing off what the console can do. Here are the new features, and this is how you play it. And I'm not saying it's as great as Mario 64. I'm not, but it's just a great experience showing off what is possible. And I hope all these other game developers get kind of inspired. Like, I would love to see what Kojima can do. Kojima's gonna once he gets his hands on it, and gets inspired. There's developers like that where they do something unique and different that's compatible with the console, or something that makes it a truly unique experience. Where it's the thing that gets me excited for the PlayStation 5. So I had a great time with it. And like I said, it was my most recent beat on the PlayStation 5, and it was just a really good time.
I have more to say about that later. Not to spoil anything, but I do agree with all your points. And I think that's gonna... Oh no, I actually do have two more honorable mentions that I do want to mention real quick. Super small indie games. I have a game called If Found. It's about... This is probably the most indie game pitch you'll probably ever hear in your life, but it's about a trans woman discovering herself in Ireland. And it's a really fascinating piece. It's a really fascinating story piece, I would say. Pretty much you play the game through her perspective of her writing in her diary. And a lot of the actions that you take and the way you experience the narrative is by erasing moments of her diary. And she will be explaining more of her life and her story. And I just thought it was a really fascinating storyline, something different. And it actually has another element of like this extraterrestrial, like imaginative, like storyline in the background that she's kind of writing at the same time in her journal. So it's just really like wholesome, sometimes like harrowing storyline about this chick just trying to discover who she is and trying to make friends pretty much to her at the end of the world, which I thought the storyline was really good. I had a really good time just experiencing it. It was very emotional. Really simple mechanics. Literally the whole game is you just erasing her journal and clicking on things. There's not really a lot of like I guess direct control in this game, but I did really have a good time just discovering all the characters in the story and just learning this really detailed narrative through this interesting experiment of a video game.
Does her being Irish have anything to do with the game?
It's just a setting. There's a lot of different there's a lot of different things she mentions. They actually kind of have like almost a little thing where they define different slang terms, Irish like slang, in the game. So because they'll be talking back and forth, right, as you're reading the dialogue, and they'll have like this little thing. It's like, you know how you like write a book or like you write like a essay and you like do little like
editorials,
parentheses, yeah, like a parentheses, sure. like a one in it, right? It's like a little like thing, and then you go to the bottom and then you read like what one is, you know what I mean, like define what that word means and stuff. It has that in this game because there is a lot of slang, and it does have that. It really feels like whoever wrote this is probably from Ireland and probably used that slang and probably had that tone and dialect and knew about the actual area that they're from. And it was just a really good storyline. I don't think it's a super long game. I think it took me about 2 hours. But by the time I was done with the storyline and having her tell her story about this super crazy extraterrestrial, like going into black holes and stuff, it kind of echoed her real life, like what she was experiencing in real life. And it was just a really nice storyline. And it was from Annapurna, and they make a lot of great games. They publish some of the best games in the indie game space. So that was a really awesome game. I think it's worth your time if you're into that super like narrative heavy storyline. And then I have one more game. It's called Before I Forget, which was also a game I brought to IndieQuest back in the day, or back in our first or second episode of that. But it's a story about a chick or woman going through amnesia. You play through her perspective, and it's a first-person game, and it just kind of plays with your preconceived notions of what you think's going to happen next. She'll walk into a room, and the room is not the room she thinks she's in, and she's slowly piecing together her past as she has flickers of memory. So it's pretty much one of those where the environment tells the story. And this one's probably like an hour long. It's not super long either, but it's just something where you get placed in somebody else's shoes and you just experience something that you would never get to experience unless you did it in a video game, which I thought was pretty powerful.
How were these both Let's Played on PC? Or
yeah, both of these are PC games. I played them both on PC, but I think If Found is on Switch. So
gotcha.
And that one has touch controls on the Switch where you can like erase with your finger on the touch screen, which is pretty cool.
Gotcha.
So I think that's gonna wrap up our honorable mentions. Stick around, we're gonna jump into our 2020 games of the year. So usually every year I do a podcast episode entitled Frantic's favorite game of, or favorite games of blank year. So this is my Frantic's favorite games of 2020 with Ryan included, which is going to be pretty interesting. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to do a top 10. I have a top 10 list from 2020 and Ryan has a top 5 list from 2020. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about my top 10 through 6 first. And then once we get to our top 5s, we'll go back and forth and discuss all the games. So first off, for my number 10, I have Fall Guys, which is a game that came out this year, or in 2020. It's not 2020 anymore. Thank God, right? But this was a really fun party game. I enjoyed this game quite a bit. I looked on my PS5. I had about 18 hours in this game last year. I had my moment with this game. This is why it's number 10. It's not like a game that I'm probably going to go back to ever again. I don't think I'm going to play the Fall Guys ever again unless they do something super insane. But the 18 hours I had with this game was some of the most fun party games I've ever had. I had multiple people that wanted to play with me. I played with a lot of friends. We goofed around. We jumped off some ledges. We fell off some peaks and failed and had a good time doing it. Fall Games is pretty much, what's that game? That game show Wipeout, right? Where they like knock people off platforms and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
Wipeout. It's pretty much Wipeout, but with
little bit
very
of the a little bit of the like double dare kind of thing too.
Double Dare.
Going. A
Yeah,
little bit of double dare to it too.
yeah, a little Double Dare, a little Wipeout, but with a poorly controlling third person game. Like, I'm not gonna say this game controls amazingly. If you play a third person like platform game, this game does not control anywhere near as good as that does, and it kind of does it on purpose. You feel kind of hobbling, like you feel like you're wobbling around on the stages, trying to make your way through various different courses to be the number one and grab the crown. And I just had a good time with this. I think I won about 10 times, and I feel pretty proud of with the amount I won. I had enough crowns to buy a Sonic the Hedgehog skin whenever that came out, so I have a Sonic the Hedgehog skin. I don't know if I'm ever going to play with that skin, but I have it, and the game was pretty fun while I had my time with it. But for me, I think that honeymoon era has completely passed for that game for me, but the time I had with it, I will cherish. It's a good memory, associated with it, but not enough to put it higher in my list, but it's enough to put it at number 10.
I have a little something about to say about this game. I forgot. I played this game, and the only reason why I say I forgot is because I don't think there's no credits for this one. And it was a game that came free with PlayStation Plus back in like June or July or maybe even August. It was a summer game. It was like the hit of the summer, right? Mm-hmm. And I had a great time with it as well. I never won any of them. I got close several times where you're part of like the final like 6 people or 10 people on the final stage. And I've came close to winning a couple of times, but I never won it. I got a few crowns from just playing it. Yeah, where I think I racked up enough points to get crowns, but I never truly acquired one crown yet. I might come back to it, but it's one of those games where I kind of forgot about it. So I mean, and I don't mean it to sound negative about the game, because I had a great time with the game. I really enjoyed it. I just kind of forgot about it because something else came along and took my interest, so you got pushed to the side. So yeah, I kind of with you, Josh. I'm not saying I'm done with it. I imagine if they come up with like some neat skins or something to drag me into it, to bring me back, I can see it happening, because I had a really good time with it. So
honestly, if they did like a Marvel season or something like they did for Fortnite,
yeah,
I think that me and you would squad up and play it. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'd be definitely putting in them hours to get them skins.
Yeah, we'd be getting in there trying to get our Captain America skin or whatever. If they did that, I would probably be in it. I'm not going to say I would put it down forever, but currently my mindset is the game was fun. I had my fun with it. I'm done with it for now. If something cool happens, because it's an ever-changing game, so if something cool happens in the game that like surprises me and makes me go, "Oh, this looks cool," I might jump in and play. So, yeah, I do agree with you on that one. So I guess we should jump to my number 9. My number 9 is Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. Did you play this game yet? Or do you care about Crash Bandicoot? I don't know what your opinion is on that series.
I was never a big Crash fan to begin with. I've been meaning to play the remakes, which are included with the Plus collection, just to give them another shot, because I know I played Crash 1 and 2 for the Cartridge Club when I think Crash 2 was the game of the month. But it was a franchise that, I'm a big N64 guy, so I was big anti-PlayStation 1, which is kind of, odd if you know about me now, that I'm a big PlayStation guy, but yeah, Crash was never, like, my guy. I was always like, he's knocking on Mario, screw this guy, so so Crash kind of got pushed by the wayside for me growing up. But no, why don't you tell me about Crash 4 and how you think it compares to the rest of the series, because I know you are a Crash fan.
Yeah, when I was like, I don't know how old I was, but I went into a rent-a-center one day. Okay, I was with my grandmother, who's since passed away, rest in peace, and she was renting, I think, a washer and dryer at the time, which is really not relevant to this conversation at all. But there was a big screen TV, old school boob tube, gigantic big screen TV in this rent-a-center, and there's a PlayStation hooked to it with Crash Bandicoot 1 hooked to it. And this is my first experience with a 3D game ever. I know Nintendo 64 was around this same era, but I had never played Super Mario 64 at this time. This is my first 3D game. Crash Bandicoot 1 is my first 3D game. So ever since then, this series has a nice soft spot in my heart. And I think they're not perfect games. They're very not imperfect in the best way. I think Crash Bandicoot 2 is probably the best one of the original trilogy. It has a nice balance. It has some gimmicks in there, but not too gimmicky. Number 1 is just hard to be hard, and it's not hard in a fun way. It really fucks you over a lot of times. And then Crash Bandicoot 3 is just 90% gimmick and like 10% Crash Bandicoot. So I think the sequel, number 2, is like a good balance. And I think number 4 takes elements from all 3 of these games and kind of makes it almost like a perfect harmony of Crash Bandicoot. I think it plays like you remember Crash Bandicoot playing, but a little bit better. It does take that platforming you know and love, adds little things to help you out, because a lot of times when Crash Bandicoot, it's pretty much a 2D side scroller in a 3D space, so sometimes it's hard to judge like the distance you're jumping. So what they did to like go against that notion or go against that gameplay error in the past is they added like this little circle shadow so you can kind of see where you're going to land, which really helps with the platforming. And it takes all the old elements, it takes all the old villains, and they're all here with some new ones, with some new mechanics. Like you have a time stop mechanic and a couple other ones, which I won't spoil because I think it's pretty fun to just kind of discover as you play. And then it has some old school elements where you get to learn some story elements, which, you know, it's Crash. There's not a lot of story, but you get to learn the backstory of Crash and Coco, how they got discovered and stuff by Cortex, how they came to be. And for me, it's just platforming bliss. I had a good time playing this game. I didn't quite beat the game. That's why it's probably not further up on my list. I played probably maybe 75% of this game, but I lent the game out to my family, and they moved up north with the disc copy of my game. So I don't have it anymore because they moved with it. So they got to ship it back down to me so I could beat the game or whatever. But when I played of it, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really great send-off, or, you know, now maybe not a send-off, but like a new refreshed version of Crash, which I was looking for. I think they did a really good job with what they did. So I think that's it for my number 9. We can jump to my number 8 here, which is Among Us, which me and you have played together.
Yeah. Good times.
This is not a 2020 game, technically, but I feel like I'm counting it as a 2020 game because it feels like every other award show in existence is counting this as a 2020 game because it got popular in 2020. What do you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
I mean, I didn't hear about it until this year, so sorry. It was a small game, and all of a sudden, you know, politicians and celebrities are playing it on Twitch, and you know, and next thing you know, it's one of the biggest games that are out there, and there's memes and everything about this game. And I didn't play it until I don't know, maybe the beginning of this month of January. Played it with Miles from Block of Nerds and you, Josh, and
Yep.
we had a good time. I don't know if they are. It seems like it's designed to be played with voice, you know, and that I mean, like when you do the, I couldn't imagine playing this without friends, like when you're sussing the people, because when you pause the game, when you see something crazy, you start thinking someone's the murderer, or you see it, you know, the body of somebody, or you know, it seems like it's designed to be played a certain way, and if you would just pick it up now and play it by yourself, I don't think you would have the same experience. It's definitely, I think, a game you need to play with friends. But when you do play with friends, and you do have some sort of like communication with your friends, and you start doing the, you know, guess who part of the game, it really becomes a lot of fun. Where you have to, it's a game that it's a lot of fun, but I think it needs to be played a certain way. I recommend it. I played it on the Switch with people who had it on PC, and it's free on mobile. I had a good time with it. I look forward to playing it some more. But it's also a case of probably a game I played in 2021 as well. And meh. I mean, meh, that's my rules.
Among Us is my number 8 because I had a lot of really fun community experiences. I do agree with you that this game does not work without voice chat, like at all. I don't think this game with text chat works. I tried it a couple times and I literally just hated it because I couldn't say what I wanted to do. I'm trying to type like super quick, like, no, this person did this. Not as fun. It's not really worth it. So I think that in the future, if they patch in voice chat, like on the console versions or something, like official, like instead of having to go into Discord or whatever to talk to people, I think that's a better experience than what they have currently. But this game is just super fun. Just telling your friends that they're assholes and they're killing people and putting people on the line, say, no, that person's the killer when you're the killer, things like that. It's just a good time. I'm gonna admit I'm pretty terrible at this game. I feel like I'm a horrible liar, but when I eventually get the lie over on some people, it's so good. It's very satisfying. So
sorry, one last thing because I just thought of this. It's a lot of fun when you are the sus, when you are the killer and you try to pretend like you're normal. Like one thing I've started doing is like, and I've it's not probably an original idea. I've copied it from other people, but oh yeah, I'm just working here. Don't worry about it. And then you tag along with somebody for the majority of the game, and then like they'll defend you. Like no. He was both me and him were doing electrical, and at the very end, and be like you like 3 people left, and you kill your friend. So the person, and I feel bad for creepy Josh because I did that to him at least once, and the conversation after was like, really, I hear this entire time I defended you this entire time, and you killed me. Yep, and that's how I won the game. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I 100% agree. It's the game you get to kill your friends and have fun doing it. So that's an awesome thing to have. So number 7 for me is a game called Sludge Life. Have you heard of this game ever in your life?
I have never heard of this game, so this is new to me.
Okay, paint the picture for you. This is a first-person game. It's a very small indie game. Has industrial, like super, like underground sounding indie rap music and hip hop and like grungy electronic music in the background. The art style is kind of almost hand drawn, kind of like neon soaked, kind of cel shaded, but not, kind of like hazy looking graphics. And the whole premise of the game is it's a kind of a puzzle game, and you play it in a first person perspective, and you're trying to go through the different various places in the map and paint tags and do puzzle platforming things to get to these tags, and then try to get all the tags in the world and paint your little slogan, your Sludge Life slogan across this entire little map. There's a lot of really weird characters. All the characters are either bugs or animals, and they always have some weird things to say. It's just a very uneasy game sometimes. It's a very weird game, obviously, from my description here. But I've played this game like 4 or 5 times through. There's multiple endings to it, and it's just super bizarre and weird and wonderful. I think this game is just one of the most memorable games of the year for me. And it's definitely one of the weirdest games I've played in my recent memory, but I recommend people at least giving it a shot. I think it's been free a lot on the Epic Games Store. So if it's free, give it a shot. If it's a few bucks, give it a shot. But this game just took me into this weird and kind of grungy and grimy world for a few minutes, a couple hours at a time. And I just kind of got lost in this just weird and wonderful atmosphere.
Free is okay with me.
Yeah, it's weird as hell, but I had to include it on my list. I loved it. So my number 6 is Ghost of Tsushima, which is a Sucker Punch game, which I love Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch is awesome work. Their Infamous series is one of my favorite superhero games. This blew me away. I loved the atmosphere of this game, and the reason it's not higher on my list, I think this has potential to be on top 3 for me if I had beaten it. But at this point I probably put around 20 to 25 hours into this game. I'm loving it. It's one of the most beautiful games I've ever seen from art direction perspective, and from the gameplay is super fun. It's collectible paradise. You got a lot of collectibles and things like that. It's awesome combat, which is very fun to learn. You got different stances that work on different characters in the world that you have to beat down, and has the best photo mode in games. I think has a photo mode where you can do a lot of cool things, which for me that's a huge selling point. The setting's super good. It just oozes atmosphere. I love the characters. The voice acting's really great. I just think this game is just one of the top tier Sony games out there. And I think it's a little underrated. Honestly, I feel like a lot of people still love this game, but I feel like there are some games that overshadowed it this year. It kind of feels like the Spider-Man 2018 effect, where that game was fantastic, but it got overshadowed a little bit. But this game just so far, I'm gonna play some more of it on my PS5. I actually downloaded it recently. Gonna enjoy the amazing 60 frame per second over there, and wrap it up. But from what I've played, this game has absolutely blown me away.
Right on. I'm gonna save my thoughts for this for further up the list.
Okay, so we did my 10 through my 6 so far. So we're gonna do my top 5 of 2020. But I want to go ahead and kick it to you first, Ryan. What is your number 5 for 2020?
So my number 5 here, I'm going to go with Marvel's Avengers. I know it was a game that was kind of dunked on this year with the I don't know. It seems like there's some hate because of the Spider-Man exclusivity going to Sony, but yeah, I had a really good time with it. It reminded me of a more modern version of Marvel Ultimate Alliance. Which I liked Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 last year, but there's something about it that towards the end of the game with how it kind of wraps up and the difficulty spike towards the end, it kind of turned me off. This one didn't, and I had a really good time with it. I know it's a little repetitive with the gameplay, but it was like a beat 'em up. It was a beat 'em up with a story, and it reminded me a little bit, like I said, of the Ultimate Alliance games with a little bit of the Tomb Raider experience that you get from the more modern Tomb Raider remakes. But I had a really good time with it. I like playing it with friends online, and I kind of want to go back to it. I keep holding back on going back to it, but it's mostly because I know there's a PlayStation 5 version coming. So I mean, you might hear me repeat this, like a broken record throughout this the last part of this episode, but I always feel a lot of these games that I didn't touch this year, or I'm holding off on playing, or because I think there's a PlayStation 5 upgrade coming. So it either held me back from 100% beating the game, or just I know it's my excuse to come back. So it's kind of like, I don't know. And that's this case with Avengers. So I had a really good time with it. I would recommend picking it up on a sale. And there's more DLC coming with story packs, so I don't know. I need to come back to it, but I think I'm just gonna hold off until that PlayStation 5 patch comes through sometime this year.
I actually saw it today on GameFly for $15.
Ooh,
Definitely worth 15, right? At least.
I mean, if they're giving you the case, and I don't think there's a book with this one,
Yeah.
cause that's modern game, but it's definitely worth it. I would say the only thing that might be like a card. And the inside is like a day one card for like the skins. But hey, if they're throwing that in there, it might be worth a grab,
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those. I played the beta and I wasn't super like blown away, but I just want to see the story, and see Kamala Khan in a video game and see what her story does and everything. I think that it'd probably be worth my time to check it out. So it's gonna be one of those things where I get the PS4 version on a deep discount, maybe on the GameFly sale, like I said, and then check out the upgrade when it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So my number 5 here is Hades. Have you played some Hades, or are you interested in it, or anything like that?
Just a little bit. I snagged it. There was a Christmas sale on the Nintendo eShop store, and I was fortunate to win the Cartridge Club, $20 to any gaming platform of your choice, award from being a Patreon member.
Hmm.
And it was on sale. I think I was holding off for maybe a physical edition or something like this, but I kept seeing, oh, it's a Game of the Year candidate, so I snagged it for a sale price. I want to say it was $20. But still, it was exactly so I basically, the Cartridge Club gifted me Hades, so I have Hades. I played it for a little bit, but then that PlayStation 5 came around, so
Yeah, so
backseat.
you kind of just fell off. But I got this game on Epic Game Store for some decent discount. I feel like they always have sales over there. So I got that game. I've probably put 30 hours into it or so, maybe 40 at this point. I haven't completely beat the game. So I guess maybe minor spoilers is once you first beat the game, you don't beat the game. You have to beat it 10 times to get credits.
Hmm.
So I've beaten it twice at this point of this recording, and I love the game. I think the gameplay is sublime. I think it's one of the best top-down action games ever made. Period, hands down. I think that it's from the variety of weapons, from the power-ups that you get, which are called boons in the game, from the storyline. The storyline actually is very good. They do a good job with taking the roguelike elements and weaving that into a storyline. So every time you die and repeat the story, you get a little bit more dialogue from different characters in the world, and you learn a little bit more about each character. And it's just one of those games that the more you play, the more you kind of fall in love with, because you realize how good it is and how well crafted it is. I think that it's one of those games I can see myself just keep on grinding and trying to eventually get that 10th beat to get the credits for in this new year. I love it. I think it's a great game.
How long do you think it takes to, if you can make it through? Because I couldn't make it through. I made it through. You have to make it, through 10 levels to get considered a beat? Or how long do you think does it take before you get through a beat session? I guess,
I would say it's like a 60-hour game. Like,
No, I
honestly.
mean, like you said, you have to beat it 10 times.
So if you do an actual beat, like, I feel like that only took like 2 hours, maybe, when I did
Gotcha.
the two beats. Like, if you get good enough, you beat the bosses and you get through it. Like, takes a little, maybe not even 2 hours, like a little over an hour or something like that. But the repetition and a messing up and you're trying over and over again to get to the 10 beats, probably going to take you 50 hours, 40, 50
Gotcha.
hours, whatever, to get those 10 beats. But it's I have it on my PC, so it's a little weird for me. I don't love sitting at my desk to play it, so I have to like switch inputs to play it on my TV. But it came out on Switch, and I'm loving this game so much that they have a save transfer. So if it ever goes on sale on Switch, I think I'm gonna pick it up there and transfer my save to Switch, so I can just play it on handheld whenever I'm watching TV and stuff, or whatever, doing any whatever else thing I'm doing in my life. I can grab my Switch and play a little Hades and have my fun there. It's just a really fun game. I think it's from the gameplay and the music, the artwork, everything. It's just, I think it's literally a masterpiece of a game. I think everybody should check it out if you haven't. Um, it's not higher on my list because I didn't completely beat it, but I think this is pretty much a perfect spot for this year or for 2020 for me to have it at. So we're gonna go ahead into our top four. What's your number 4 game of 2020, Ryan?
So my number 4 game of 2020 is Streets of Rage 4. So 4 and 4. I
Mm-hmm.
had a really good time with it. It is definitely worthy of the handle Streets of Rage, in my opinion. I had a really good time with it. I love how it plays. I played it courtesy of Game Pass until my physical copy arrived. I know there's a lot more. There's a lot of unlockables to go through it, and the music is fantastic. Especially I think the track's called Rise Up. But it's the track where if you're playing the elevator level, it's such a great track. I absolutely loved the music in the game, and it's a really good time. I can't recommend it enough. I hope people aren't upset that it's being ranked 4 on my list. It's just I had a really good time with it, and these games that are ahead of it are just a little bit better in my eyes. I do plan to go back and play it some more. I only played it, beat it with my favorite character in the series, Blaze. And I know there's definitely more characters to to unlock and play it in the game. So I had a great time with it, and yeah, play it. It's a good time.
It's I downloaded it to my Xbox and I never jumped into it. So if anybody wants to get mad at anybody, get mad at me for not playing it. But yeah, that seems like a pretty solid pick. I think that a lot of people this year just had a good time with that one. I think it surprised a lot of people because it doesn't have that pixel art style. The music's pretty good too, right? I listened to a little bit of the music there. I thought it sounded pretty good.
I just want to say basically I love the art style too. So I know you mentioned the pixel style. That didn't bother me. I kind of like the hand drawn animations more. So I know there are pixel characters to be unlocked. Like you can unlock their skins from Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3, I believe, as well in the game. I haven't done it yet because you have to beat it numerous times, but I really enjoy the art style of the game.
That's awesome. I think it's beautiful. I really do. I know a lot of people are nostalgic for that pixel art style, but I'm okay with something looking a little bit different. Has that feel for the classic style with the new style mixed in with it. That's awesome to me. I love that I love the fact that I'm talking about Crash Bandicoot 4 and you're talking about Streets of Rage 4. You know what I mean? That we're talking about these classic revivals. I love that. Let's go ahead and talk about my number 4, which is Tony Hawk 1+2 HD. Is this cheating? I don't know if it is or not, because this is just a revival of the old games. Do you think it's cheating?
Nah, it was remade for the console.
Yeah, I think they nailed it. I think that's why it's on my list, because if they didn't nail it, I wouldn't be talking about it right now. I think this is, it brought back those games. It made them modern. It took the old style gameplay. I think the thing they did the best with this game is they took the two games and they added all the moveset from the game up to Tony Hawk 4. So you have all the moves all the way up to Tony Hawk 4, which makes these maps come to life even more, especially in Tony Hawk 1, because in Tony Hawk 1, you didn't have the revert, you didn't have the manual, you didn't have a lot of these moves that you're used to playing with in the later Tony Hawk games. And going into school, the original school, with all these moves, and just being able to shred it up, get amazing score points, get your combo up really high, and just have a blast. The game is beautiful. The HDR on these modern consoles is just phenomenal. It looks so good, and it runs so buttery smooth. It has the original soundtrack with extra tracks. Like, I think they added like 20 extra tracks. And it's pretty much the best remake, or at least up there as one of the best remakes I've ever experienced. It's taking my nostalgia and making it modern, which I love. So this game just blew me away. I was so happy to jump back into Tony Hawk and just, like, I was so excited for this. I played the demo, which is literally just the original garage stage from Tony Hawk 1, over and over again. I probably put like 15 hours just into that demo. That's how excited for this game I was. Just trying to rack up higher score points and everything. That thing didn't even have objectives, and I played it that much. So I just have a deep fondness for this game. I put so much time into it, and I love it so much that I haven't beat Tony Hawk 2 completely yet. I've played all the stages, but I'm kind of trying to savor it, because I don't know if there's going to be a Tony Hawk 3+4 or anything in the future. So I kind of try to savor some of the objectives, and I haven't completely 100%ed it yet or anything, because I was like, I want to save a couple of objectives in case I want to jump in and just enjoy it later on, But such a good game.
Can I ask, is there a way to skip the tutorial? Because I started it up, and they stuck me in a tutorial. I'm like, I already know all these moves, and it didn't seem like I could skip it at all. So I had to go somewhere then after, and I just never came back to it. Like, I was like, all right, I'm just going to play that warehouse level real quick and just mess around. And they're like, oh, you got to do this tutorial. And I'm like, what? And so I ended up doing the basic tutorial, and it's like, let's go to advanced. I'm like, oh, I was like, I already know all these moves. I've been playing these games for years.
Yeah, so I think there's a way to skip it. I don't really remember, honestly, on that part. Yeah. But I think it's worth your time, man, if you want to jump into it and play them. I know it's those games, but it's really easy to fumble something like this. And I think they just absolutely just destroyed it, nailed it. So good. So what's your number 3 game from 2020?
My number 3 game is a game that I think it started off 2020, came out pretty early in 2020, and then I think it kind of uh, fell off people's radar. Was Resident Evil 3, the remake for it. I had a great time with it. I've always said that Resident Evil 3 is probably my least favorite of the tank control classic style Resident Evil games. It's always been my least favorite, and it just, I don't know, it just never was one that set well with me. When 2 has always been one of my favorites. I thought this was a much better experience. I had a great time with it. It makes me excited for the other Resident Evil games coming out in the series. Like, I guess remake of 4 is coming out. But no, it makes me want to have a Code Veronica remake, or even a remake again of the first game. I had a really good time with it, and I liked how they kind of even tied in a little bit of 2 to this game. So I enjoyed it. I know they attacked on that online multiplayer game, which I still have never tried, and this one's shorter than Resident Evil 2, but I had a really good time with it. So I recommend it if you're a fan of the Resident Evil series, and aren't the biggest fan of 3. I know some people who are fans of 3 didn't like the slight changes or removal of a level, but it didn't bother me none. I had a really good time with it, so play it.
Yeah, you know me, I'm not the hugest Resident Evil fan, but I did hear from word of mouth that people didn't like 3 as much as 2. But to you, did it live up to 2 as much, or was it just as good?
It wasn't as good, but then again, I'm a big fan of 2. 2 is my favorite one in the series, and I thought 2, there was more bells and whistles that came with 2, with like they had like free DLC, and 3 didn't get this free DLC like 2 did, but I think maybe because 2 overproduced and they were really concerned about trying to sell the online game for it. So it seems like they're trying to say, oh, well, you're getting 2 games for the price of 1. But I was just there for the story mode, so.
Awesome. This is a hole in my friend my like backlog is Resident Evil just in general. I played a little bit of 2. I've played 4 multiple times the first few hours. I've played 5 a good amount. I've played 7 a good amount. It's just I never stick with them till the end. So this is actually on my list this year. This franchise is to stick with one of them. So just a tangent. Which game do you think I should play through? I've played through maybe like 4 or 5 hours of 7, and I kind of got stuck. Do you think I should just kind of try to figure that out and finish that up, or do you recommend me trying a different one?
You said number 7? Or
Yeah, 7.
4, 5, 7. I mean, I think I like 7 a lot. To me, 7 was the revival of the franchise, where I for the longest time said Resident Evil's dead. I was not. I beat 5. Is it 5? 5 and 6, they're fine games. Even 4, it's a fine game. But those aren't Resident Evil games in my eyes. Like 4 is a very, very good game. But is it a really good Resident Evil game? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. Controversial opinion there. But if I was going to recommend one to you, I would say if you had it, I would say give Resident Evil 2 Remake a try. I would say, because I liked all the modern improvements, the free DLC. Like, they really kind of went above and beyond with, like, thanking the people for buying the game. 7, I had a really, really good time too. So if you like the first person mode, I don't know if everyone likes that. I know at least one person was not happy that Resident Evil 1 first person mode. Didn't bother me none because the game was creepy and I had, lots of good scares. But I think the basis of Resident Evil is kind of 2. So I would, if I was going to recommend anyone, I would do 2 Remake. So.
Okay. Well, like I said, I played a lot of 7. The first person didn't bother me. But 2, I did play the demo, and I did enjoy the demo of that. So maybe I'll play both of them. We'll see how it goes. This year's kind of loosey-goosey for me. Nothing's kind of sticking out too much for me, like AAA-wise, but we'll talk about that later. But like, maybe I'll play both of them. We'll see. I'm super interested to actually finally dive into that series, at least a little bit, get my toes wet, get my feet wet. Anyway, that's an awesome pick for your number 3. So I'm going to jump into my number 3, which is Spider-Man Miles Morales, which you talked about earlier. In this game, I did beat in January. this year. I beat it a couple weeks ago. But like I said, I didn't get my PS5. I want to, and I played this game in 2020 also. Like you mentioned, I got it for my PS4 in early December, somewhere around those lines. Played a few hours, and then I waited and beat it on PS5. But it's not Spider-Man 2018, but it's a shorter version of that game. And I think the stuff they cut a lot of the fat, a lot of stuff that was frustrating about the first game. You know, a lot of the like random crimes that you had to get, which were a little frustrating, and then the Sable stuff was like super hard to like fight. And they were sometimes frustrating and maybe a little OP at times, a little cheap at times. But playing this game, I just had such a good time discovering Miles Morales' story, meeting all the characters in his life, and going through kind of I guess this feels kind of like a side story. It's a side story, I guess, but I put enough time into it to make it feel like a complete journey. I know a couple of people have complained that the story kind of moves a little too fast. Like they don't develop the villain quite enough a couple of times, or they don't develop various characters in the story enough. I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I think that this game really just lived up to the original Spider-Man 2018 and improved in a lot of ways, especially the Venom powers with the electric attacks. I think that really adds a lot to the gameplay. It adds a lot of variety. Taking out some of the gadgets was a good idea, having it focused on just 4 basic gadgets and not 8. I thought that was cool. So you had your 4 basic gadgets, and then you had your Venom powers that you can kind of combine together, which made it fascinating and interesting to play. This is one of the most beautiful games I've ever played, especially with the 60 frames per second. They had a performance ray tracing mode, which I was kind of bouncing between the ray tracing and the non-ray tracing performance mode as I played, and I thought both of them looked great for different reasons. Like I think the one without ray tracing looked more lively because there was more people in the environment, but the performance ray tracing in buildings was so nice because you saw all the awesome reflections and it just looked stunning. The voice acting's great. The storytelling is just wonderful. This is one of those games that 2018 Spider-Man was my game of the year in 2018, and this is just a perfect follow-up to that in my opinion.
No, I had a really good time with the game as well. It's a great launch game. Most of the time, you like when you get a console's launch game, it's they generally are shorter because they're mostly there, I guess, to show off the console. And I mean, I almost wonder if this was planned DLC or and they decided to hold off and get it gussied up for the PlayStation 5. But and I hate to say it's like DLC, but it's. I mean, I guess I will adhere to the complaint that it ends quick because I wasn't expecting. I thought I had at least another hour or two before the game was going to end. All of a sudden, then, bam! They give you the warning saying, "Hey, you're on the final mission." I was like, "Oh, okay, well, And granted, I have lots of side missions to do, but I was always would just do like 1-2 side mission. Okay, then here's another story. Okay, 1-2 side mission. Here's another story. And then I wasn't ready for it to end when it ended. So
yeah.
So if I was going to complain about one thing about the game, is that.
It is a little short. I do think it's Lost Legacy, Uncharted Lost Legacy fodder, where that's a shorter game, but that is one of the strongest Uncharted games. I feel like this is a shorter Spider-Man game, and it's not quite 2018 levels to me. I don't think it lives up completely to that game because that game just had so much more to it. But as an extension, as an expansion pass game, and kind of made its own standalone thing out of an expansion pass, kind of similar to Lost Legacy, which is easy to draw those parallels. I think it's a great experience, and it just really makes me hope and wonder what Spider-Man 2 is going to look like built straight from the PS5, like built off of that, not thinking about last gen at all, building a straight next gen experience with Spider-Man. It's going to be pretty wild because this game is just a technical marvel. It's so beautiful, and like I said, the story is just so well told, and I really loved it. I do think, like you said, it's a little short on the short side. It does kind of end abruptly, and I do have side stuff to do still, and I'm gonna get that platinum. But I do think this game is wonderful and worth your guys' time. So let's go ahead and jump onto our awesome top 2. You go ahead and shoot your top 2 at me. What do you got? Number 2 here.
Number 2 for me is Ghosts of Tsushima.
Ooh.
It was up there for me. I platinum it, and I kind of regret doing that now because as a reward, I think for overselling on the PlayStation 4, they gave a PlayStation 5 patch where it's like 4K 60 frames, and they added the what is that called? The multiplayer mode where you can raid mode where you can play with friends online.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I have friends who can actually who actually want to do it, because I want to dip back in. I had such a great time. Like I said, it's an easy platinum, but I wanted to platinum it because the game was great. I love the combat. I love the duel system with the game, where if you see, these, I don't want to say bad samurais, but you see people on the road, and as a samurai, you can be, I guess, the ghost. You can be a little bit evil and like just sneak and kill them from behind, or you can kill them with honor, where you challenge them to a duel. And I love the whole duel pose, and it's basically you wait for them to make the first move, and then you unleash and slash them. There's a moment in the game, and I want to say it's close to the third act. Maybe it is even in the third act, and I really wish I remember what the name of the mode is off the top of my head, but it's kind of like you press R3 and L3 together, and it's kind of like, I want to say it's like beast mode, where you just go absolutely ape on people. Like, it gives you, I don't know, it's super samurai powers, basically, where you just if you see a big guy wearing extra armor, you don't have to worry about it. You're gonna be cutting through him like it's butter. So, and it's one of the great moments, like cinematic. I would say, like, I don't say cinematic, but it's like when it happens in the game, you're like, nice, this is awesome. Like, it comes at a right time in the game, and I look forward to more from this franchise. I regret playing it on the PS4 because of the patch. Like, I really wish I would have saved it for the PS5, but with how much I had fun with it and getting kind of a little next gen experience. So, my little regrets. If you haven't played it yet and you're planning on getting a PlayStation 5, save it for your PlayStation 5.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, that was one of my earlier games, and I'm glad to see it so high on your list. It makes me excited to finally wrap it up, man. Like, I think this game is just a masterclass. So I'm happy to see it this high on yours.
One final thing on this. It was a game I was very lukewarm on too, because I'm usually never one to jump on a new franchise right away. It just came out like a couple days before my birthday. So it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? This is one of the things I'm just going to treat myself with. I had no game going on at the time, and it sucked me right in. So it's one of those ones where I'm glad I jumped on it, as opposed to waiting to like a Black Friday deal or something. So
awesome, man. So I'm going to jump into my number 2. It is Astro's Playroom. That's my number 2 of the year. Short and sweet. Captured my imagination. It's okay, so this game is pretty much a 3D platformer. It's like you said earlier, like way earlier in the podcast, that it's pretty much Super Mario 64 for the PlayStation. It's not quite as classic or as good as Super Mario 64 probably, but this thing really just sold me on PlayStation 5. The controller, the haptic feedback for the PlayStation 5 is just beautiful, wonderful. It just blew me away. I loved it. And the mechanics of learning all the different little robots and little suits you can wear, like the monkey suit and the frog suit with the springs and everything, was just so good. I just had a smile on my face from the jumping off point of this game. And this game is free. Like, you just get it with your PS5. I guess if you want to be technical, it's a $500 tech demo, right? Because you get it with your console. But it is a tech demo, but I played it for 5 hours. I had such a fantastic time, like, just going through the worlds, getting the platinum. I got the platinum trophy on this, and just experiencing what these people did with this controller and this new tech. Because I love tech. I don't obsess over it like some people do, but when I get something that's super cool and feels futuristic, like the first time you pull those triggers, and they do that little tech demo at the beginning with like the rockets on your controller, and you feel the haptics, you feel like the controller like come to life in your hands. and then you feel the triggers have that resistance that just feels so wonderful. And I think that everything about this game just blew me away from the PlayStation nostalgia too. Like finding just a PSP freaking like camera. You know, who had a PSP camera? Nobody, but it's in this game, you know, just finding all that little cool stuff. They render out the models for all these different PlayStation, you know, items, and just living in the nostalgia, feeling the controller and just experiencing the game. I just had an absolute blast. So that's why it's so high on my list.
Not to mention, there's like homages kind of where it's like, oh, this is the PlayStation 2 kind of era where you're seeing Pyramid Head and like Astrobot take on that, or an Astrobot parody of Dante from Devil May Cry, where I'm like, oh, that's, you know, like little, like even like franchises that didn't belong to him. Like there's a nod to Final Fantasy VII, and you know, like things that people I think associate with PlayStation, and those little robots are doing tributes to it is just a nice little touch.
Yeah, like so pretty much the concept of the game is like each area is a different era of PlayStation, so you'll see a lot of references. Like you go to PS1, you'll see some Ape Escape dudes, you see some Metal Gear Solid 1 guys. Go to PS3, you see some Killzone dudes. Like it's just so cool. Like it just, I don't know. It just gave me the good vibes. I was super stoked to have a PS5 because that was a struggle to get one. It was a pain in the ass. It was probably one of the worst console launches of all time, which I'm sure me and you could have a conversation about that another time or something. But yeah, I don't think this launch was very well done. But getting the console in my hands, trying out this demo, which is, like I said, all intents and purposes, it's just a tech demo. But it turned out to be one of my favorite games of 2020. So, man, all this talk conversation leads to our very favorite number one game of 2020. What is yours?
My favorite game from 2020, and if you probably haven't heard it announced by now, you probably know what it is. It's The Last of Us Part 2. And I've said this before on our CC extra for the game. I didn't like it as much. Or maybe, I don't know. I know it's a better game than the first Last of Us, but I think I still like the first Last of Us better. Yeah. But it's the one game I keep coming back to the more I think about it. You know, when I think about 2020, I think about the games I played. I know people like to joke about Naughty Dog and the cinematic experiences, but not one piece of media this year, 2020, hit me like The Last of Us Part 2 did. Where like I think about the movies I watched and the shows I watched and the video games I played, nothing hit me like that game did. Where, I mean, the performances from all the actors in the game, and the gameplay is great too, don't get me wrong, but the story stuck with me a lot. And like, I still think about this game. I do want to go back and play it, and I'm hoping a PlayStation 5 patch comes around because I really do want to replay the game. I'm holding up that there will be a patch. I'm assuming there's going to be one, if not a PlayStation 5 version. But yeah, it's the one thing I can say about this game is, out of all the games I played from that year, nothing stuck with me quite like The Last of Us Part 2.
So, my number one is Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, so we both agree here, man. So, like, all the things you said, I'm just, like, nodding in approval. Like, hell yeah. Like, probably the best performance in game, maybe in gaming, like, ever. Best facial capture, probably ever. Best environmental storytelling, probably ever. Best storyline for a game, probably ever. Best music, you know, that's subjective. All this is subjective, but to me, this game is just a masterclass in storytelling. It's a masterclass in gameplay. It's a masterclass in everything it does. It is really hard to top this game. This game is more than a game to me. It was an experience, and it just really blew me away, made me feel many emotions, it just captured me from start to end. I could not put this game down. I literally binged this game for 12 hours straight one day because I just had to see what was next. I just had to see the next moment. I had to see the next interaction. I had to experience the next stealth sequence. I think this is one of the best stealth games I've played in quite some time. I think they do such a good job in building these stealth playgrounds where you can just do what you want. I think they do a really good job with that. And it's one of the best games of all time, period.
Whenever I've come back to it several times, like the soundtrack, but mostly even just like, I mean, the renditions of Future Days throughout the game too always like sticks with me. Where I will play that version, like when I'm just listening to video game tracks or something at work, killing time. I'll pop that on every once in a while. Just and like I said, I hear it and it still sticks to me with the moments from what happens in this game where I'm like, damn, yeah, that was something else. So it's I don't know. I had such a good time with it. I still think about it, and I love to replay it. So
Yeah, I think that the performances and it's brave storytelling. I think that what they did here with this game, I'm trying to be as vague as possible, obviously, if you haven't played the game, but they do take a turn with this game that you don't expect to be taken, and they do a lot of brave choices with the storyline. Like, I can think of 5 probably on the top of my head that you probably don't expect coming and to happen, and it will shock you. It's very shocking and kind of almost like I don't know, this takes you off guard. And they do such a good job with doing those moments, and then they make you love characters you don't expect to love and hate characters you don't expect to hate. And I just love what they did with this game. And it's really stuck with me too. I agree with all the things you said, where when I think about this game, I get lost in it. I think, man, what a fucking game.
it was my most anticipated game of 2020, and it delivered. You know, like lots of times things don't deliver, and this is one of the cases where it did. So,
Absolutely. So, I think that's it's it for my 2020 list, or our 2020 list. After this little bumper, we're going to jump into some old games we played in 2020 that we want to give a shout out to.
Life is beautiful.
So I have a little list here of my older games that I played in 2020. I have a top 5 actually. But I think that you have a top 3, right? From 2020 that are older games.
correct. The top 3, I would say that for me, that I played from like games were in 2020 releases were Astrobot VR, Ratchet and Clank, and Bloodborne. All 3 PlayStation 4 exclusives, but I had such a good time with all of them. I want to mention with Ratchet and Clank that I played the original PlayStation 2 game, and you know when I beat it the first time, I was kind of lukewarm on it. You know, it didn't really tickle my fancy, if you will, or it didn't. You know, I hear there's a lot of love for the franchise, and it didn't sell it to me. I felt like Ratchet was a jerk, and I understand some of the reasons why people liked it, because they like seeing the progress over the games of him becoming less of a jerk into a better person. But he was very unlikable in that game for me, and I don't know, maybe some of the gameplay maybe was a little bit dated too. But the remake, such a better experience for me. I had such a great time playing the game. I loved it. I loved that Ratchet wasn't a jerk. Is very both characters were Ratchet and Clank were very likable. Gameplay great. I can't speak more of it. I love the remake. I know, like I said, I know some people don't like it that he's not a jerk because they like seeing the progress, but to me the remake was great. I can't speak more of it. Bloodborne, we played for the Cartridge Club. It was my first From Software game that I actually beat and played. You know, I know I played a couple times where I started up here and there, but playing along with the club was something else, and I loved it. By the time at the end of it, I loved the whole parry system with it, with stunning with the gun and then kind of ripping out the monster's hearts and everything. I kind of got pretty decent at it. And Astrobot VR is, you know, I know they mentioned it prior with it being the Mario 64 for the VR, but it's true. You know, you play it, and it's one of those things where it's like you wish more people took the time to develop for the VR and have that kind of experience, because you know, like it does for the Astrobot Playroom, it does for the VR. Same exact thing. Where for the controller, you're doing it for the PlayStation VR, and it's such a good time playing that too. So,
Yeah, this year I jumped into some Bloodborne, and I've put a lot of hours into it, but I'm terrible at it. But I do see that loop kind of like growing in on me. And the thing is I in the back of my head, like back of my mind, I think that maybe perhaps they'll do like a remaster or like a patch to make it 60 frames per second or something. So it's kind of like, do I want to like put a ton of time into this? Because who knows? Maybe they might patch it and make it 60 frames, on the PS5. I don't know. But from what I played of Bloodborne, I love it. And Astrobot VR, I agree with you 100%. I love that game to death. It's so good. So I have a top 5. I'm going to run through my top 5 really quick like you did. So my number 5 is Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. My number 4 is Sayonara Wild Hearts. Number 3 is Jedi Fallen Order. Number 2 is Outer Wilds. And number 1 is Death Stranding for a top 5 from old games I beat in 2020 that stuck out to me. And I'll just go over these real quick. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was a PC game I played for Quick Save Club, which is part of the Cartridge Club feed and everything. And it was a Fallout-like before Fallout was a thing, or the first-person Fallouts were a thing. And it really blew me away. I thought the storyline was really well told, and I loved the interactions between the characters. The gameplay was janky as hell. It's a very buggy game, but the entire experience is one I won't forget anytime. I thought they did a really good job with it. The Sayonara Wild Hearts, for my number 4, is an indie game which is pretty much a short and sweet music game with one of the best soundtracks you'll ever hear in music. It's pretty much a entire album made by a group turned into a soundtrack and turned into a game. And the way they do the gameplay, the little mini games that you do, and then just how you go through this album as a video game is breathtaking. It really will take you on a journey, and it just will make your jaw drop a couple times. I think it's really beautiful and really well done. For number 3, we got Jedi Fallen Order, which is a Souls-like Star Wars game, which actually was on my 2019 list. I think I had it at number 7 or 6, something like that. This game, finally wrapping it up early in 2020. I thought the storyline was beautiful. I thought they did such a good job making me give a rat's ass about these characters that I never knew about, tying it into the Star Wars franchise, and having some really fun gameplay along the way. It does have some jank around the edges, but honestly, it's a very unforgettable Star Wars game, and as a huge Star Wars fan, it's just one of those that's going to be living in my memory, and hopefully the sequels improve upon the formula they started with this game.
And recently patched for new consoles.
Yeah, I actually was looking at that. I was like, dude, should I jump into this again? I know if I start that game again, I'm just going to go through the whole thing.
I bought it for Xbox. I bought it for Xbox One, and now I kind of want to sell it so I get the PlayStation 5 remake. So I don't know. That's the thing, is I have to wait for it to be on sale again, and maybe I'll flip my Xbox version. Or if anyone wants to trade Xbox for PlayStation 4, let me know. Hit me up.
Yeah, I got it on PS4 initially, so I actually almost bought it on Xbox back when it came out, or a little after it came out, but I didn't. So I'm kind of happy I didn't. Anyway, another game that people have told me for many years to play, which is Outer Wilds, my number 2 here, is one of those games that I will never forget. It's a 22-minute time loop at the end of the universe. So basically you go through trying to discover what happened to this fallen alien species. And basically what you do is you go to these different extremely intense and oftentimes pretty frightening planets, and you explore different buildings and environments to just piece together the storyline and how to get to the end goal and to get credits for the game. And it's a game about loss. It's a game about hope. It's a game about discovery and new beginnings. And it's a game that has one of the best endings of all time, and it really blew me away. I think this game is just a masterclass in storytelling. It's definitely one of those that is meticulous. You have to take the time. You have to learn everything. You have to not get frustrated. You have to stick to it. If you don't stick to it, you're not going to get it. And I learned that because I tried this game multiple times and never stuck to it. And then I had some days off. I took some days off from work. I'm like, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to play this game. And then when I'm done with this game, I'm going to play a few more games. But over the course of my days off, I ended up just playing this game and just getting immersed in this world. And it's definitely on one of my favorite games of all time now. So, and if you're listening to this, there's going to be an Indie Quest episode where we go super, super deep into spoilers. So that's coming up pretty soon, probably in the next month or so. So check that out when that launches. And my number one game that is an old game I played in 2020, beat and loved to death, was Death Stranding. Kojima did it again, man. Kojima did it again. I was pretty skeptical of this game. I didn't buy it when it launched. I didn't have a lot of money at the time when it launched, just to be completely frank with you. But I eventually got it on a sale, and I just devoured this game within like 2 to 3 weeks. I just played 50 plus hours of this game, just loving it. It's one of those games that's tells a story in such a unique way and has some of the weirdest mechanics you'd ever think that would be in a video game. Like, literally, you're just delivering packages across the map. But seeing the story play out how it did, and then talking to these people along the ways, and dealing with the systems and learning all the little intricacies and little weird jokes that Kojima throws into his things. A lot of weird moments of like weird beauty. There's like a lot of beautiful things that happen that's kind of weird and out there that you never would see unless it was tailored and kind of made by Kojima. And the gameplay is weird and wonderful, and I just think that it's one of those games that I think about all the time. So Death Stranding
I still think about it.
Yeah.
It was my. I don't mean to talk over you, man, but it was definitely my game of the year. 2 years, definitely my 2019 game of the year. Definitely was. I glad you got around to it because it's just a great game. I still think about it. I want to platinum the game. I was really hoping with that 5-year announcement they'd be like, oh, and here's a PlayStation 5 patch for you, because there's a PC version of the game where you hope you get bumped up, like maybe the dynamic 4K and 60 frames, so it's like the PC version. But I don't know. I had such a great time on the PlayStation 4 version where I kind of want to platinum a game. It's a game I think I'm gonna definitely platinum in 2021 because I want to go back and play this game. It's something where I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll come back to it because I have a few deliveries I can make and finish building this one final piece of road here, and I just never did it. And it's something I mean to do when I go back to platinum it. So hopefully sometime this year I can do that because it's a game I miss. I would love, like I said, I know I'm repeating myself, but I would love a PlayStation 5 port just so I can go back to play the game probably again.
The thing about this game is they give you a lot that you can do. Like, they give you a lot of tools and a lot of kind of toys to play with. So I got super deep into doing those, what are they, like the zip lines across maps. So, and it's such a cool multiplayer idea. I do think that I did talk about this game on the podcast when I was playing it, but hey, I'm repeating myself, I'm sure. But that's been so long, who cares? Anyway, you make the zip lines, and you kind of feel, or anything, you make a road, you make anything, and the thing, the intuitive multiplayer makes that all that like really act together in this like beautiful way. So you do feel like, hey, I'm doing this for me, but hey, I'm doing this for like the 50 or 100 or 200 or 1,000 players that are going to play after me, that go on this road that gets spawned in on their map. So it's kind of like this weird multiplayer game at the same time, which is just so unique. Who thinks of these things? And who does? It's Kojima. Kojima's the badass. Dude, I love all the Metal Gear Solid games, right? I love them to death. Metal Gear Solid 5, I've never beat, but I loved it. I played a ton of hours on that game. I probably should go back and see the ending to that game, honestly. But every game he makes is weird and wonderful in its own unique way, and I think this game does the same thing. And I'm a stan for Kojima. I think whatever he puts out, I'm going to try it out, even if I don't think it's going to be my bag. He said he's going to do a horror game. I'm not the biggest horror game fan, but it's Kojima. I'm going to play it, So.
No, I know. I am a stan as well. I trust him now. When I remember people questioning me seeing Death Stranding, and everyone's like, what the hell am I seeing here with these trailers? And I remember Sean and Musty both going like, "Why? Why? What about this that you saw?" And I'm like, "It's Kojima, man. I've learned from everything I've played from him is something I love. And until you burn, I'm very loyal until you burn the bridge. I'm very loyal. So now like it could be something way out of my taste for what I'm gonna try. Like that's why I was like, well, it's gonna be weird. Sure, it's weird, but I'm probably gonna enjoy it. And that was the case with this here. I know a few people who never have played a Kojima game, and Death Stranding was their first Kojima game, and they loved it. They told me straight up they loved it, and they're like, yeah, it's weird, but I don't know, something about it. The gameplay was addictive, and you mentioned like the people using the multiplayer where people are using your roads and everything. I remember that first time it sunk with me. Like I built these roads, and I was only building really for myself, and then you see like 1,000 likes hit you for all using that same road that you just built, and I'm like, all of a sudden your level goes up like 18 levels. So like, whoa, what? Okay, well, I'm gonna keep building more roads because I want to go up more levels, so it keeps me going down the same exact path where I'm like, yeah, there's story to do, but I'm gonna build these roads here. And that sounds so stupid, but it's not. It's a lot of fun where you get supplies to do this stuff where I a lot of times, as opposed to just gathering in on my own, I just loved having a great time of robbing the mules, the people that try to jump you in the game. Where I got to the point where you get these guns where you don't kill them, but you tie them up and you stun them, where you're like, okay, well, I'm going to raid your camp. And you just go and you raid their camp, fill up a whole truck, take it back to your base, dump it on there, or start building a road, and then go back and get the whatever stuff you couldn't carry the last time. And I don't know. Sounds dumb, but it's so rewarding and fun.
And they have the over the top characters. We got Mads Mikkelsen in there, just hamming it up. I loved him in there. He was so good. And then we got like Norman Reedus, who didn't really act too much, but he kind of plays the character just right to be the player character. I think that everything about this game just shines. I think that it is a really weird and wonderful game that I think that people should give a chance. If you can get it on sale and you're kind of on the fence about it, get it on sale. Get it for like $15. I think that it's on sale all the time for about that much. And just try it out. Give it like 5 hours of your time. If you give it 5 hours of your time and you don't like it, fine, go ahead. That's cool with me. But if you give it 5 hours of your time, you probably are going to fall in love with it like we did, because it just has that charm to it.
So I'm going to slightly disagree with you, and I think you might have to give it more than 5 hours. And I say this because I think chapters 2 and 3 are the longest chapters in the whole game.
Yeah.
And there is a major turning point starting with chapter 4. And after that, the game goes by quick, super quick. And I don't want to spoil that because that was kind of like a, whoa, what is going on here kind of moment for me in this game. But then after that, like, oh, no, slow down. I want to go back to the slow part here. So I would say, I know there's a lot of complaints where people are like, oh, it's a slow burn. And it is until about chapter 4. And after chapter 4, the game completely switches what it is. Where I had to slow myself down because I'm like, I don't want to do this mission, because that's going to advance the story, and I'm not ready to give up building roads yet here for this story yet. So, it's a slow burn, and I think you might need more than 5 hours, but don't give up on it until at least you get past chapter 4. It's hard to say. I know some people are like, well, if it doesn't grip me this quick, but I don't know. Chapter 4 is a turning point, and I don't know.
Maybe I'm more forgiving, because I was like, at first when I played this game, I gave it like 2 or 3 hours. I was like, I'm good. It's kind of weird and slow. And then I give it a few more hours to where I was about 5 hours, and I got to like a point where it clicked for me, and I loved it. So that's where my perspective was. But I do agree that chapter 4 is something ridiculous and amazing. So it's one of those games where you're just wandering while Churches is playing in the background, and it's just a beautiful moment. You got to just sit there and appreciate it. Appreciate this moment for 3 minutes, okay, guys? It's that type of game. So I don't know. It's just so cool. I think this game is just something special. It's nothing like it out there, and probably nothing like it ever again. So, Death Stranding, my favorite old game of 2020.
I'm right.
So before we wrap up, Season 2 of Frantic Thoughts, Episode 1. So this is my Season 2 I never told nobody this. This has been in the back of my mind. This is the start of season 2 of Frantic Thoughts. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm still going to count the episodes like I have been counting them. Like, just keep going up. But in my head, this is a new beginning for Frantic Thoughts. So since I took so much hiatuses, there's no schedule for this show. This is going to kind of be going up as I feel like making this show from now on. But expect a few episodes a month. It could be 1 episode. It could be 4 episodes. It could be 7 episodes. Whatever I feel like making. This show could be 15 minutes. It could be 2 hours like this one's going to be. But this show is me just talking about my life and things I enjoy and love. And spreading the positivity. So this show is not dying. This is a continuation of that. And speaking of continuations, we want to have a short conversation about a few games that we're excited for in 2021 and going forward. So what's a couple games? Just shoot some games out there that you want to talk about, Ryan.
Well, after playing the Resident Evil Village /8 demo, Resident Evil 8, high on the list. I know it's coming out, I think, in May this year for my PlayStation 5. I'll be getting that. I do recommend the demo. It's a little short, but it's just to give you like a peek of what it looks like on a next-gen console. Recommend playing it. It's free for PlayStation 5 owners. Wink, wink.
Playboys.
Playboys. Whoop, whoop. I also, after playing Ratchet and Clank last year, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, high on the list for me this year.
Hell yeah.
Definitely gonna be jumping on that this year. I'm hoping there's something cool to like bonus wise so I can give me the excuse to get it day one. But I know for sure I'll be get it this year sometime. Horizon Forbidden West. That and another game I'm gonna follow it up right here, God of War 2. Said they're supposed to be this year.
I know.
We'll see. It's hard to say, because of people still working remote and everything. Like, I still see maybe Forbidden West being a summer game. I can see getting pushed to the fall and being the big fall release for Sony. But I think, it's the big question marks because there's no set in dates. I'm just gonna say I think for sure for Horizon Forbidden West comes out this year. God of War 2, I think, might fall in that 2022 window, but we'll see. Kena? Is that?
Yes.
Kena? Is that how it's pronounced? I know when we saw that one trailer for it, it'll look great for when they were showing off the PlayStation 5. On the list for me to want to play this year. And we'll see. Breath of the Wild 2. We'll see. I know it was teased a couple of years ago. Maybe it's along the lines with a Switch Pro, something or other. I need to undust that Switch. So, give me an excuse to play my Switch again, Nintendo.
Exactly.
I know this list is heavy PlayStation right here, but I need my excuses to play your consoles, So give me something I want to play. Sony's delivering, but no one else really is at the moment. So what about you, Josh?
Definitely all those games. I agree with you. I'll hit them all really quickly. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I want to see that new tech in action. I want to see that SSD shine. I want to see that ray tracing. I want to play a next gen built from the ground up PS5 game. So I think that's going to be one of the first ones that show that off. Kena Bridge of Spirits. I love a 3D platformer. It's so beautiful. I love a little indie, short experience. I think there's only supposed to be around 6 hours long. It looks really fun. I'm excited to check that out just to see what all is about with that. The gameplay trailer reminds me of a nice Pixar movie that's come to life in a video game format. So that's going to be awesome. We got Horizon, Forbidden West? Yes. And I think the little bit we've seen of that game just is jaw-dropping, and I'm excited to see what they do with this tech and what they do with that engine and what they do with that franchise, because I loved the first game. I think it was one of the best PS4 games and one of the best open world games I think I've ever played. And I'm just excited to see what they do with this new monstrous console, And let's see. What was the other one? All right, just completely blank. The next game I have was one you haven't mentioned yet, is Deathloop. It's from Arcane Studios, and I love Dishonored. This is actually the Dishonored team is making this, and it has kind of like a funkadelic vibe to it. It's a time loop game, and I've kind of been all about time loop games recently. Outer Wilds was one. And another game, 12 minutes, which is being promoted by Xbox, but I think it's going to be on every console. And Deathloop looks pretty wild. Like, it's just you trying to figure out how to assassinate these people in this like clockwork world, which I love that thing where you're trying to be stealthy and try to like piece together a puzzle at the same instance. And there's some kind of like weird multiplayer mechanic where you can jump into other people's worlds and like kill them while they're trying to figure out puzzles. And it seems weird and kind of interesting and different than anything else I've ever played. And like I said, 12 minutes where it's like a top down, like try to solve like a puzzle with a time loop mechanic as well, where you play through like a night over and over again, try to figure out the pieces of the puzzle, and it has like a lot of crazy voice actors in there, like Daisy Ridley and stuff. So that's gonna be cool. Let's see if there's anything else that sticks out to me before we wrap up.
I'll throw in Returnal.
Returnal, yeah.
I don't know if it's a day one for me. Probably not. It's definitely a wait and see kind of thing. And I know it's a smaller probably budget or studio for this one. I know it's a Sony exclusive. It's gonna have the nice Marvel-esque banner that's gonna be attached to it.
It's Housemart.
But Housemart?
Yeah, they did like what's it called? That launch game. That what's up?
Was it? Oh, what should I talk about? I know what you're talking about. What was it called?
That PSN launch game. The
Resogun, yeah.
What is it?
Resogun,
yeah. They did Resogun. They did Super Stardust. They did Nex Machina. They do a lot of arcade style games. So I feel like this has that DNA in there.
I know it's roguelike. I mean, that's the thing. I think maybe it's the throwing me off a little bit. Where if it wasn't roguelike and it was like a story, I think I'd be really more hype into this one. And I know there's a story. Don't get me wrong. I know there's a story for this game here. But like, if it was more of I know probably the trope of it being a third-person action game, basically, I'd probably be more like, okay, this is definitely my wheelhouse. But because it's roguelike and it looks like it's a third-person one, kind of like, we'll see. We'll see. We're definitely putting the, probably will pick it up sometime this year.
It's not
probably not on launch, but we'll see.
It's $70. It's a full price game. Yeah. So for me, I'm like, I will wait till that's 30. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna pick it up for 70.
Why don't you put that on Plus right away here? Let me get a
yeah, I know. It does not feel like a $70 game. Just watching the trailers. I mean, no offense to the developers on that one. It just feels like an indie game. It feels like a $30 to $40 game. It does not feel like a $70 game, especially from the gameplay and stuff I've seen. But it does look fun. I do want to try it out, but not for 70.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Axiom Verge 2. I'm looking forward to that. That looks cool. More of that. Give me it now. Thank you. And then Gotham Knights, I'm kind of on the fence for. I know you're not a huge fan of the way Gotham Knights looks because it's not Batman, technically.
No, not Batman.
But it's not Batman, but I for me, I've been so excited for whatever they're going to do. I kind of want to pick it up day one, but honestly, I think I'm going to wait a couple weeks just to see what people say before I pick this one up. If people have positive impressions on it, then I'll grab it right away. But if not, if it's kind of middling, I'll probably wait for a sale on that one. So there's just a lot. There's a lot of random stuff next year.
Well, this is stuff we know, right? There's always stuff that pops up that we don't know about, right? There's all the rumors and whatnot. That there's always like one or two things that pops up. Your E3 will say, okay, here's the fall games, and whatnot.
Exactly.
Like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Hype. So that's the thing. I know we're hurting for what do you call it? The State of Play and for Nintendo Direct and Xbox Presents. We're hurting for them right now. But I think that also has to deal with these studios working from home, not wanting to give people hopes that it'll be a spring game and it comes out in fall. So it's kind of like, I think we've seen how Cyberpunk's been received this year.
That's what I was thinking.
I think everyone's like too scared to be like, we're releasing it broken and we'll patch it shortly after it. Where what we see like all the lawsuits coming up now and whatnot, where I think nobody wants to fall in that trap. And it should be, right? No one should be releasing buggy games. It's, or completely broken games. That's what I should say.
Definitely.
Don't make promises, for everything and then not deliver. Just delay your game. It'll be fine. But it's definitely kind of, I think that's the approach that's going to be going forward. So we'll see. These are just the games that I've seen that we kind of know that are at least announced and are projected to come out in 2021. There's always stuff that sneaks out that gets, announced last second, but we'll see.
Like I said, I agree with you with the Nintendo comment too. Nintendo, I feel like I played my Switch like 4 or 5 times last year. I don't feel like I played it like half as much as I should be playing it. And that's probably partially my fault because I play indies on other stuff, and a lot of people just use their Switch as an indie machine, and I don't. I would use it for a Nintendo machine, so I'm kind of like hurting for some Nintendo stuff. Nintendo, surprise me, please. I'm here for it. I'll play. I love your games. Just give me something to play,
Mm-hmm.
And also, Xbox. Me and you are not the hugest Xbox fans, but give me a reason to buy an Xbox Series X. Like, I want a reason to buy one. I wouldn't mind having one just to have it to play some Game Pass, because Game Pass is a good service. I'll give them that. But from the exclusive standpoint, I don't really see nothing in like the next 2 to 3 years that I'm like super like, oh my god, I need to play that. If Halo Infinite comes out and plays pretty good on the Series or the Xbox One X, which I have, I'm good. So I don't know. Give me a reason to want your new system when it comes to that.
Doubt. No, that's where I'm at right now, man. Where I know I've launched or said a lot of PlayStation games here, but they're the ones at least kicking out stuff that's in my wheelhouse right now. Or, and they've announced things where I'm still like dragging on Nintendo right now, or I don't know what Nintendo's game is this year, right? We don't know.
Exactly.
So it's kind of like, okay, well, I have your console, so what do we do here?
The rumor is a Zelda collection, which if it's good, maybe I'll pick it up. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, hopefully that's not the only game, because I feel like the main game last year was the Mario collection. Like, there wasn't really much besides that. There was like Paper Mario and what else? Paper Mario and the Mario collection. That was it, right? There's nothing else that I could think of. Oh, Hyrule Warriors. What's up?
Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing was a big
Animal Crossing. Oh, I always forget about Animal Crossing. I'm not an Animal Crossing guy. I should be. I like Minecraft, right? So maybe I should love Animal Crossing. I don't know. But nothing in my wheelhouse, I guess I should say, for Nintendo last year too much. Like, I got the Mario collection and played some Mario 35, but nothing like blew me away. I just want to be blown away by Nintendo. Give it to me. Same with Xbox. Xbox blow me away. I want everybody to be doing good. Like, I love PlayStation, like, first and foremost. That's where my bread and butter is, obviously, and I love PC gaming too. But, like, honestly, I want everybody to be doing good and putting out awesome exclusives. So we'll see what happens.
We love video games, so that's why we're here. So we just want people to deliver, and that's what we want, because when everyone's delivering, forces competition to step their game up, and that's what we want. I'm with you. Like, I've been dogging the Switch, but they haven't delivered much to what I want. And I know there's games that people love them, but nothing that I've wanted in about 2 years now. It seems like it's just like, I don't know, kicking dust, and I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. I know I'm just dragging on here now. So.
All right, man. I think that we have talked enough. This went a lot longer than I expect. That's not a bad thing, though. I had a good time. And I appreciate you coming by and hanging out. Why don't you go ahead and plug everything you do on the internet, and we'll wrap this thing up.
Well, thanks for having me here, Josh. I love being here. I want to give a shout out to my boy Mark, aka Cartridge Bros Player 2. Whoop whoop. I know he listens. Love you, man. What's it called? Sorry, Dean, I didn't play Final Fantasy VII Remake. I do have it. I know you're probably bummed out that we didn't talk about it. I meant to play it. I honestly do. I have the game. I bought it on Black Friday. I just had hopes that they would announce a PlayStation 5 version, which probably will happen the second I put it in my PlayStation, 4 to play, or 5, whatever. I was just holding off on playing a version, so apologies for not playing Final Fantasy 17, and anyone else who deemed it to be a Game of the Year candidate, and we didn't talk about. So apologies for that. I know it's on probably a lot of people's lists this year.
I do want to pick it up and play it when there's a PS5 patch. I told myself I was going to play. I literally told myself I was going to play Resident Evil in a Final Fantasy this year. So Resident Evil.
The demo was a good time.
The demo was
a good
pretty
time
good.
with the demo. So
yeah,
I will play it. It's definitely on the 2021 backlog. Apologies, I didn't get it in 2020. It was on my list. Probably would have been, but I just didn't get in there. So sorry, Church. Sorry, Dean, and a few others who love the Final Fantasy VII series. But then again, thanks again for having me on here, Josh, to talk about 2020 video games. I love doing this every year, usually at the end of the year. So thanks for having me. You can find me on Twitter. It's Rocket Sauce, or the Cartridge Club Discord, or the Retro Fandango chat. I'm usually there when they go live. So shoot me a hello, or on Instagram, same handle. It's Rocket Sauce.
All right. Well, you guys can find me on Twitter at Frantic Society. I do have some new stuff that I've cooked up in the last few months. Box Office Bliss, which is something that I've kind of like threatened to do. Like, I'm gonna do a new movie podcast one day. I'm doing it. I promise. So I ended up doing a movie podcast. Pretty much the premise of that is we do it season by season. We'll take an entire franchise. We run down every movie in the franchise and some of the extenuating content too. So we're doing Final Fantasy. We're doing Fast and the Furious. By the time you listen to this, there should be a few episodes up, 3 or 4. And we're going to do the game. We're going to do the entire franchise, including the cartoon and everything. We're going to rank it all. And then we're going to take probably a couple weeks off. And then we're going to do season 2, which is an unannounced movie franchise. And each season we just kind of pick something and we vamp about it. And we go through every single piece of content there is in chronological order. And just have fun and goof off and talk about everything about it. It's a good time. That's Box Office Bliss, and on Twitter that's at Box Office Bliss. And then I have another podcast. This is called Indie Quest, which is an indie podcast which talks about indie games with a good buddy of mine, Blinkoom on Twitter, or Steve from Polykill. And that's part of the Polymedia Network now, and it's a good podcast. I have a good time over there. We talk about indie games. We're interviewing devs now, apparently. That's something we're doing. And just talking about games that are smaller and deserve a little bit more sunshine. And we shine that sunshine on them. Figured I would give you guys a little pitch of the shows that I've been working on. The things that I've kind of put this show on the back burner for, which is no longer a thing. Like I said a little bit while ago, this is in my head season 2 of Frantic Thoughts, which is whatever. It's just another episode, but we're going to continue going on with this show. And it's going to probably have some more experimental episodes, some one topic episodes, some shorter, some longer, and it's just going to be kind of a good time. Hopefully you guys stick around and enjoy the show in the future. So Ryan, thank you so much for hanging out with me, man. I had a good time talking to you, man.
Thanks again for having me.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. I love you. And I'll catch you on the next Frantic Thoughts podcast.
Let's make a toast to the damned. Waiting for tomorrow when we're played out by the band. Drowning out our sorrows. What will become of us now? At the end of time, we'll be fine, you and I. Let's draw a line in the sand. Keep it straight and narrow. We had it all in our hands. We begged and then we borrowed. What will become of us all at the end of love? When we stopped looking up, you can take my heart and hold it together as we fall apart.
All right.
Let's make a dance. Tomorrow. I don't know.
What-
That's all I really know for the song.
What song is that?
Those churches, those the Desperate song.
Oh, okay.
You can be my heart.